In 1999, a bronze disc pulled from a German hillside forced archaeologists to rewrite what they thought they knew about early European civilization. Not because it came from Egypt or Greece or any civilization long credited with sophisticated astronomy. It came from Central Europe, around 1800 to 1600 BC, from a culture that most scholars had assumed left behind no such intellectual legacy. That assumption did not survive contact with what the disk actually showed. The object is about 30 centimeters across and weighs just over 2 kilograms. Its surface carries a deep blue-green patina, the result of thousands of years in the earth. And across that patina, someone inlaid gold. A large circle, almost certainly the sun or a full moon. A crescent, a scattering of individual stars, and one tight cluster of 7 stars that most researchers read as the Pleiades, the same star group that farming and seafaring cultures across the ancient world used to mark the agricultural calendar. Along the left and right edges, 2 gold arcs curve from roughly the same angle, interpreted as markers for the rising and setting points of the sun at the solstices. Near the bottom, a 3rd arc decorated with parallel lines running along its interior is most commonly read as a solar boat, though other scholars have proposed a rainbow, a comet, or even the aurora borealis. That range of interpretations is not a weakness in the evidence. It is the evidence doing its job honestly. What is not in dispute is that whoever made this object encoded specific astronomical observations into metal. The question the disk raised, and that archaeologists have spent more than 2 decades carefully answering, is what that tells us about the people who buried it on the Mittelberg Hill in what is now the state of Saxony-Anhalt in Germany. The Mittelberg is not a random hillside. It sits in a landscape that, by the early Bronze Age, already carried the marks of deliberate human organization. The disc was found alongside 2 bronze swords, 2 hatchets, a chisel, and fragments of spiral armlets. A deposit that looks less like accidental loss and more like intentional burial. A structured act of placement in a meaningful location. The culture responsible is identified as the Unetice, a Bronze Age society spread across Central Europe, whose material record, before the disc, had been read primarily through metalwork and burial goods, rather than through any evidence of systematic astronomical thought. Scientific analysis of the disc and the associated objects confirmed the early Bronze Age dating. That confirmation mattered enormously, because the disc arrived on the archaeological market through illegal excavation, and establishing its authenticity and its genuine find context required the kind of careful forensic and material analysis that separates legitimate scholarship from wishful identification. Various analyses of the bronze, the gold inlay, the patina chemistry, and the site itself converged on a consistent answer. The disc is real, it is old, and it came from where the looters said it came from. Now consider what the disc was actually doing. The Pleiades cluster appears twice in the agricultural year across the northern temperate zone. Their heliacal rising in spring, just before dawn, traditionally mark the beginning of the planting season. Their setting in autumn marked the time to bring in the harvest. A society without writing could still track these cycles precisely by watching the sky. And the disk appears to encode exactly that kind of functional astronomical knowledge. The solstice arcs refine the picture further. They suggest the object was not merely decorative, but was designed to hold and possibly transmit specific information about the solar year. The solar boat image, if that is what the bottom arc represents, connects the disk to a much wider symbolic tradition. Across Bronze Age Europe and the ancient Near East, the boat carrying the sun through the underworld or across the sky was a recurring cosmological idea. Its possible presence on the Nebra disk does not prove direct contact with Egypt or Mesopotamia, but it does suggest that Bronze Age Europe was not intellectually sealed off from the broader symbolic world of its time. How those ideas traveled, through trade, through the movement of people, through independent parallel development, remains genuinely open. That openness is worth sitting with, because the temptation with a find this dramatic is to overinterpret it. The disc does not prove that Unetice culture had professional astronomers, built observatories, or left behind a school of cosmological writing. It proves that someone in Central Europe, roughly 3,600 years ago, made a portable object that encoded real astronomical relationships in durable materials and buried it in a prominent, carefully chosen location alongside high-status goods. What ceremony surrounded it? What authority it represented? Whether it was used for teaching or for ritual or for practical calendar keeping? Those questions remain open, and honest archaeology keeps them open rather than filling the gap with invention. What changed permanently is the map of early European intellectual history. Before the Nebra Disc, the standard account placed sophisticated astronomical knowledge in the ancient world firmly in literate, urbanized civilizations: Babylon, Egypt, later Greece. Prehistoric Europe was described in terms of monuments, burial mounds, and metalwork, with the assumption that abstract cosmological thought came later, or came from elsewhere. The disc does not overturn that entire framework, but it punches a very specific and well-documented hole in it. A non-literate, non-urban Bronze Age culture produced an object that integrates solar, lunar, and stellar observation into a single coherent instrument, and did so at a level of astronomical precision that was not supposed to exist in that time and place. The disc is now held at the State Museum of Prehistory in Halle, Germany, and recognized as a UNESCO Memory of the World document, a designation that places it alongside the Magna Carta and the Gutenberg Bible as a record of human intellectual achievement. That recognition carries a specific meaning here. The disc is not celebrated as mysterious or inexplicable. It is celebrated as evidence. Evidence that the capacity for systematic observation of the natural world, for encoding that observation in lasting form, and for passing it forward through objects rather than text, was not the exclusive property of any one civilization or any one geography. The lesson the Nebra Disc teaches is methodological as much as historical. It arrived through illegal digging, which means the exact stratigraphic context was damaged before scholars could document it. A loss that cannot be recovered, and that limits how precisely we can answer questions about how the disc was used and by whom. The subsequent scientific recovery of its authenticity and dating is a demonstration of what careful, multi-method analysis can and cannot reconstruct after that kind of damage. What we have is reliable. What we lost when the original context was disturbed is a permanent reminder that the ground itself is part of the evidence, and once it is gone, no amount of subsequent analysis brings it fully back. A bronze disc, 30 centimeters wide, made by people with no written language in a part of the world, long assumed to have been astronomically silent, and it shows the sun, the moon, the Pleiades, and the arc of the solstice horizon encoded in gold. The question it leaves open is not whether early Europeans were capable of this kind of thought. That question is answered. The question it opens is how many other objects, still in the ground or lost to time, are waiting to revise the map again. Visual reconstructions are illustrative. Facts and interpretations are based on the sources listed in the description.